Hello, and welcome back to Trailblazer MTG. My name is Paul, or Prop, and in this video we will be covering the round 3 of the April Asynchronous Trailblazer League. First up, I'm going to pull up my opponent's deck. Just a quick recap, I decided not to make any changes from last week to my deck, partly because the match was played very late in the week. I didn't have time to really consider. I think the only thought I potentially had was adding Corey Steelcutter in to for my double spelling, but I wasn't 100% sure on it, and so decided to not make any changes. As for my opponent this week, this is a Golgari mid-range Planeswalker deck called, well, Look at My Rock, which is a play on The Rock, which is a reference to the Attitude Era wrestler, The Rock, and his millions and millions of fans. So the original Rock deck was a Planeswalker deck that generated creatures and tokens in a mid-rangey kind of list. This has turned into a slightly more mid-range control kind of structure. Planeswalkers for impact, creatures to either ramp or disrupt, hand attack, death touch, some of the bigger, more impactful creatures at like 4 mana, and then obviously also at 5, Gitrog, Harvester, Baelmerk. So again, looking to ramp out and get quickly to 4 mana, where most of the most impactful cards, 4 or 5, exist. To help them get there, they have various removal spells, some of the more powerful removal available, a decent amount of hand attack, obviously duress, non-creature, 2 creature/planeswalker removals, and then Thoughtseize is obviously the most powerful. Also have, as I said, removal, Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Bitter Triumph, Fatal Push, some of the strongest, the Edict. They also have Huntsman's Redemption. This is actually interesting. I know it's a 100-card singleton. However, if you have an opening hand that has the Huntsman's Redemption and a mana dork like Elvish Mystic or Llanowar Elves, you can present lethal on turn 4. You play Elf turn 1. On turn 2, you play the Huntsman's Redemption, create a 3/3 beast. On turn 3, you sacrifice the Elf to go get the Ouroboros. After floating a mana off the Elf, you then use that mana plus 3 lands to cast Ouroboros, and then on the following turn, assuming everything survives, the 2 turns plus the pump of the redemption is with the 3/3 beast, and the Ouroboros is lethal. I think in the matchup that we're looking to play, one, I'm probably going to be prioritizing removing any mana dorks that are played. Also, I'm looking to maybe have them dead or almost dead by the time turn 4 comes around. Obviously, the cheap removal that this deck plays, and some of the more impactful cheap creatures like Bill, Keen-Eyed Curator, obviously Scavenging Ooze, are hoping to slow me down and gum up the board. But yeah, I think this is another very interesting matchup. I think aggro plays into mid-range fairly well. I think it's a fairly even matchup, really. It will depend on who gets out the gate faster, as with a lot of things. Just to quickly look at the lands, we got Sage and Takanuma, Demolition Field, and Field of Ruin for land removal. We also have Hive and Lair for creature lands. I'm not seeing the Wish's Cottage. We do have Basing Say, which can create creature lands, which works well with Badgermole. But all in all, I think this should be an interesting matchup. Again, if opponent is able to get to 4 mana or is able to resolve some of their more impactful 3-drops like Glisser, Sentinel, Spider-Man, we might struggle. But I think we're in with a good shot of putting plenty of pressure on. Should we make sensible keeps and not draw terribly like we did in the last match? So that's it from me. I will be back shortly with the match. So, quick disclaimer, I was not able to record live audio for this match, so this will be a post-commentary. And unfortunately, I also did not hit record until after the first game had started. So what you'll see when we transfer into the match is that it will be opponent's turn 2, and I will quickly catch you up on where we are. So I kept a 7, which had Swift Spear, Stonecoil Serpent, 3 lands, Shock, and Cemetery Gatekeeper, and then drew Screaming Nemesis on my turn 1, turn 2 draw. I was on the play, I won the die roll. So turn 1, played the Monstrous Swift Spear, hit for 1. Turn 2, again hit for 1 with the Swift Spear and played the Stonecoil Serpent. As we pick up the action, opponent has just cast Valky and is looking at my hand, deciding on what to take. So they decided to take the Screaming Nemesis here, which is fine by me. I draw a Wild Slash, which gives me 2 removal spells. I play the Faceless Haven. I decide to, looking at the 2 options I had, I decided to go with the Shock. They know about it. The Wild Slash is still an instant, and potentially later in the game could be much higher damage. So this allows me to kill the Valky, get the Nemesis back, and then I can play the Cemetery Gatekeeper and exile the Valky, which I do after combat. So now I can play the Gatekeeper, exile the Valky, which means any creatures they cast from this point on, being a fairly creature-heavy deck, will cost them 2 life. This puts me in a good spot. I have the Wild Splash, which is going to buff the Swift Spear, and I have plenty of other damage options. Yep. They play Bill, they play a land, which buffs Bill up to 3, which is fine by me. I have the Screaming Nemesis. They know about the Screaming Nemesis, so not playing it pre-combat kind of telegraphs my attack here. However, I don't think they're expecting 2 damage options. So opponent takes a little time, thinks about where to block here. Obviously, the Gatekeeper, getting that off the table, prevents them from losing life for where they resolve more creatures. But the first strike does mean that it's easier with even the smallest buff to turn what could be them eating my Gatekeeper into the reverse. So I think about the decision here, but in the end I decide to push the most damage possible, play the Swift Spear, and then decide, because I have the Wild Slash and damage can't be prevented, I go face with that, which takes them down, trading off losing the Stonecoil Serpent, but they know I have a Screaming Nemesis in hand. Bristly Bill, they're at 2 life. I have the Swift Spear and the Gatekeeper, and any creature they cast kills them. So they play a land, they buff up Bill, just looking at my options here, looking at what I have while opponent tanks. And they eventually decide to go out on their own terms. I'm not sure whether they thought that the Bailmerk coming in as an enchantment wouldn't count as a creature spell, but it is a creature spell when you cast it. It's just on the, once it resolves, it comes in as an enchantment. So that's game one. And quickly into game two. Obviously, opponent will be on the play here, so we're on the draw. Obviously, unkeepable. We have a 0 land hand. It's really close. I think 1 land in this, and I probably keep it. There is plenty of ways to get back in. This is maybe a little land heavy, but I decided to keep. I decided to go with put the snow-covered back over the escape tunnel. I initially think about the escape tunnel, but I figured it might have an outside chance of pushing me more damage later in the game if I need to push through with a 2-power creature for lethal. Obviously, don't have a turn 1 play. I draw the Stonecoil Serpent, but I don't really want to play that for 1 mana. I think about leaving the Snow-Covered land on top so I can guarantee playing Chandra on curve, but for now, but decide to put it away. I think I want a little more impact. So now we have an interesting thought. I have 3 2-drops. I could play the Gatekeeper and exile my own land, which would potentially put a pressure on my opponent's developing lands, but I think play the Squelcher. If they decide they want to remove it, it's going to take 2 life away from them, and if it sticks around, it gives everything else that same 2 life cost for the ward. So now I have 2 2-drops, an X-Spell in hand, and an escape tunnel. Opponent kills the Squelcher with the Harvester of Misery. They play land and pass. Now I've drawn both my 4-drops, which is rather funny in a deck that only has these exact 2 4-mana spells. So I play the Gatekeeper. I decide I'm going to tax their creature base again, planning to exile the Harvester. They think for a minute and decide to kill it with the Murderous Riser. Cost them another 2 life, but I still get to exile it, but it doesn't have the ongoing tax on the board. So opponents answered both my first 2 threats. Now they have Preacher in play, which has a potential to start taking over the board. And I failed to draw a land, which is frustrating. Obviously, this would have been a perfect time to hit 4 mana. I could use the Chandra, clear the Preacher immediately. But I'm left in this situation. So I decide, with the Barsing Say in play, play the Harsh Mentor. It kind of slows down, or maybe I think makes them think twice about activating the Barsing Say. It obviously doesn't stop the Preacher, but that is the price we have to pay at this stage. We're on a little on the back foot here. Obviously, I bottomed the land. I could have been at 4 mana here, but I think drawing a second 4-drop was a little frustrating. There wasn't much I could do about it. It's one of those small percentage options which can leave you in a rough spot. So now we hit the 4th land. So thinking about it, obviously this Vivian hitting the table at 6 is fairly large. So what I decide to do, also just as a point, notably Harsh Mentor doesn't deal damage based on Planeswalker activity. It's only creatures, artifacts, and lands. So I use Chandra, clear the Preacher of the Schism because of the incidental value that can come, and I'll leave the Harsh Mentor back in the hopes that I can fade a turn on trying to kill the Chandra. save her life, and then start incrementing her up to either do damage or accelerate out some other spells. If I'm able to tick up, I can maybe have, with 2 mana, I can have a really large Stonecoil Serpent on the table. But that was my initial thought. However, upon they take up Vivian, they find the Bristlebud Farmer, and then they have a Gitrog. 6/5 Trample Haste, very large creature. Even if I blocked, I wouldn't be able to save the Chandra, so Chandra just saved me 6 life, which is fine. That's something that Planeswalkers can do. So now I hit a 5th land. So what I decide is I've got this Sunspine Lynx. It can block the Gitrog, it can trade with the Gitrog, but so can a 5-mana Stonecoil Serpent. Now this was a bit of a mistake. I forgot that Vivian's minus ability hits artifacts, and she is mono-colored, so the Stonecoil Serpent doesn't get protection from her. It does have protection from the Gitrog. So I think maybe the flipping the play order around, playing the Sunspine Lynx with the Skewer the Critics, could have given me, put me in a slightly better situation. I could have used the Skewer plus the Harsh Mentor attack to potentially tax Vivian's loyalty points. But in the past, we move on from the mistake. So now opponent has 2 5-toughness creatures. So in this situation, I could spend all 5 of my mana to clear one of them, but what I decide to do is use the Sunspine Lynx. They fetch, which takes 2 damage from the Harsh Mentor, also trigger Skewer the Critics. They get a basic, so they don't take the extra damage from the Lynx. They take 4 damage here, I take 1. And then I use the Skewer to go face. With another 3 damage in hand, if we're able to fade an attack, we're very close. We're 1 burn spell away from winning the game. So that put me, even with this, I can still block right now, save just enough damage to survive, and hopefully get there with a double burn spell. However, opponent looks at the top 4, they find the Overlord, and they find the Ouroboros. They have the Ouroboros in hand. So this is going to represent lethal. They're going to... they had lethal if I didn't block, and now they have 2 more damage, so the 2 damage that I saved, I would have saved from blocking with the trample, now no longer relevant. They're attacking for 13, and I have 2 toughness, so I die. So stumbled a little on my draws, especially having the 2 4-drops. They almost got me back into the game, but opponent had enough removal to fight through all my defenses and then the buffs to finish out strong. So here we have a hand with pump spell, removal, we have a creature land, and we have light up the stage, which can hopefully refill options later. So this is a keep. Yeah, looking at my hand, trying to work out what I want to do. I don't have a turn 1 play, so I play the Mutavault. This gives me the option, if I really wanted to just activate the Mutavault on turn 2 and attack with it. They play a Mystic. So I've locked myself out of Scorching Shot, but I don't think I'd want to spend the shot on the Elvish Mystic. Yeah, Hostility doesn't do direct damage. I don't particularly want to fire up the Mutavault. I'd want to advance my board state, so I play the Kenra. They wouldn't have blocked anyway with the Mystic. I could have targeted itself, given the option, but I decided I kind of autopiloted targeting the Mystic there. So now they have a Tireless Tracker, but I have a Screaming Nemesis. So I hit 3 mana, I play the Screaming Nemesis, attack with everything, 5 damage. They offer the trade to either decide not to take it, they take the damage. So now I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. I have the Scorching Shot in hand. If they decide they want to buff up the tracker, I have Light Up the Stage for any damage I do. Obviously, they Abrupt Decay the Screaming Nemesis, really good, gets it out of the way, prevents the direct damage causing any issues with them, allowing them to continue gaining life. So this is an interesting turn. I decide to boot up the Muted Vault. I have the Borrowed Hostility and the Light Up the Stage, and the Burst Lightning as a backup if I want it. I have lots of really good options for what I want to do with my mana this turn. So, attack with everything. Opponent has a thought. Tries to decide what to do. Obviously, they can crack the clue to make the tracker bigger. But I have ways around that, obviously, with the Burst Lightning and the Borrowed Hostility. So right now I'm just waiting on opponent to determine what they want to do with their blocks. They decide not to block, so I decide differently on this. So I realized that of the two, I would prefer the Kenra to die, and assuming they had a removal spell, I figured I would put it on the Kenra because should I get to enough mana, I can bring the Kenra back with the Eternalize ability. Yeah, and so it's kind of what happened. They had the Fatal Push, so they kill the Kenra in response. I do 2 damage, and then I use the Spectacle ability of Light Up the Stage to basically draw 2 cards. So I have Kellen, another good mana sink, and the Wooded Foothills in my exile. And I have plenty of removal options in hand. Right now, opponent can get tracker up to a 3/4. Oh, sorry, a 5/4. But they're at 10, I'm at 20. I am very close to being able to cast the Kenra on the back side. So, yep. They decide to draw with a clue. They have 3 mana open, and they pass. So draw another fetch land. Obviously wanted to play the Foothills and play the Kellen. Get the max value out of the Light Up the Stage. And this is where I decide what I'm going to do with the mana that I have. So first up, I decide I want to get rid of this TARDIS tracker. I don't want them getting more card advantage out of it. It's a good point to remove a threat off the board. And then I go fetch a basic so that I can boot up the Muted Vault and swing in. So, opponent draws a clue. They have 1 mana available. There is potentially a 1 mana black spell or green spell that could save them. I'm not sure without looking at their deck list, but I don't think there was a cost to them doing that. So right now I'm looking at the Kenra. Obviously I can use it to prevent some blockers. But they play a Shieldred. Shieldred, Scorching Shot is down. It can be a little tough to remove with the 5 toughness. Alright. So now I have an interesting... I obviously have the mana for the Kenra with the 2 lands I have in hand. And I have a Burst Lightning. I can also use the mana that I have to sink into Kellen. But right now, I decide that the best thing to do, play a land, Eternalize the Kenra, prevent Shieldred from blocking, and not wanting to... And attack with the Mystic. prioritized into saving as much life as possible, so they have to block the 4 mana. I think the Kellen play was a little risky. They could have just blocked the Kellen, but then they're taking 4, so they're at 6 life here with Mutavault and Crawling Barrens. They play the Field of Ruin and this Braco Heartless Hunter. So this, when my creatures die, it gets bigger. But right now, especially with the Seer draw, I don't mind the life loss. I would like to just prevent as much life gain from the Shieldred as possible. So I have ways to kill either of their creatures, certainly in hand and on board with the Kellen. So what I decide to do is swing in. Wait to see how they block. Opponent's obviously definitely thinking about it. I have so much mana open. I have Kellen as a mana sink. I didn't boot up the Barons or the Mutavault, so they're definitely concerned about that. So we have the... So what I decide to do, this is a very all-in play, but I think it's worth it to try and clear the board here. I sink all my mana into booting up Kellen, making him a 3/2 double strike. I allow the first strike damage to go through, because obviously if they were to stop it, that would it wouldn't be worth spending the extra mana on Burst Lightning. Able to get the final 2 points of damage and trade the Kenra for the Braco. So right now I have 2 creature lands. They have a land removal option, and I have whichever creature land they remove, I get to boot the other one up. I also have a removal spell in hand. One of the scariest 5 toughness creatures they have is already gone. Most of what they could play right now is probably going to have 4 toughness or less coming down, so the Seer is very live. And I have this Kellen, which is hitting for potentially 6 each turn, on top of a Crawling Barrens. So, opponent now resolves Gitrog. But they have to hold it back, which is obviously they are very much on the defensive here. I decided to go get Thundering Falls to check out, and they hit a Titan Strength. So this is interesting. +3/+1 is a lot, especially on a double striker. They're obviously incentivized to block. I have 4 mana for the Crawling Barrens, which still allows me to have the Titan Strength live and active, or the Seer. So I decided to leave it on top. I boot up the Crawling Barrens. It's only a 2/2, but I think it's still a valuable option to attack with. I swing in. So now, obviously, opponent has to make a decision. I decide, I'm an R and try to decide what the best play is. Do I use the Titan Strength to make Kellen bigger, or use the Seer as a removal spell? So I let the first strike damage happen, finish the creature off with the Seer, and hit them for 2. I don't need to try and push for lethal here. If I'd hit them for 3 more damage and lost the Kellen, it wouldn't have made all that much difference. Kellen himself is an incredibly strong option. Really hard to deal with, especially with pump spells and damage once he's in the double strike mode. And opponent is kind of top decking for answers. They found Anissa, which got to flip immediately, and they are going to minus her to create a 4/4. So again, a blocker. Hoping to fade another turn, and then they cast Vivian. Leaving allows to go find something to potentially have next turn. However, right now they are tapped out. Keen-Eyed Curator is in play. I draw Draconautics Engineer, which can only give other things haste, can't give haste to itself. Not all that useful right now. So I boot up the Barons again. It's now a 4/4. One of the great things about this land is how every time you activate it, it gets bigger. And I just swing on in. So now I think whatever happens, they're dead. I have the Titan Strength. They block Kellen. And I pump up the Barons. Scry didn't really matter, but I hit lethal. And I finish them off. So that's the game. I will quickly be right back with the aftermatch chat, but there is obviously with post-commentary a little less to say. Okay, we are back at the deck screen for a quick wrap-up. So I think the MVPs in the later part in the third game were the creature lands, obviously Mutavault getting in early, getting removed, and then the Barons being a second option to push the damage through. Kellen was very good. Obviously, he needs to stick around. He is somewhat committal. However, if you resolve him early and he does stick around, you, rather than playing cards from your hand, you can dump mana into him. Especially in games that go a little longer, like that third game did, having mana sinks available. Obviously, Kellen, the creature lands, especially the Crawling Barons, very useful. I was also, obviously late in the game, I drew the Draconautics Engineer, but that wasn't particularly important to the outcome. But if the game was going to go further turns, the 4 mana create a 4/4 red dinosaur, really useful late game, get a flyer on the board. But other than that, I think the deck kind of did what it was looking to do. Game 2 just kind of stumbled a little in terms of drawing my 2 4-drops, having opponent be able to get ahead, not really drawing into the right removal at the right time. But we can't really complain. We won 2-1. We'll go into round 4, 2-1, as we did with the last league. As I'm recording this, and for next week, the Secrets of Strixhaven cards will be legal for the final week of the league. But that is for next week. I will include my final decisions in the pre-match for next week. I do not know who my opponent will be, but we will see. I'm hoping I can end up in a decent matchup, and it would be great to go 3-1 in this league. Last league I went 2-2, and if this league is so far going on a similar path, so I could end up at 2-2, but we're going to try and get that 3-1 and finish in the upper part of the league. But with that, that's going to be it from me. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content. Leave a comment about what plays or what moments in the game you enjoyed or had questions about. And until next time, have a wonderful day.